everybody. It's me. Yes, I'm late. It's Monday, but on Mondays, there's just gonna be days on of the week that I can't make it here on time. So I will try to make sure I get here out by the normal starting time on Mondays, but it's not always going to work out. And I already warned you that. Hopefully, as the year progresses, they will fix the issue that we have at work that makes me late on Mondays. But until then, it's just something that might happen. Today, we're going to talk about that Don Lemon video. I'm going to use, since I have it to shorten up the show today, might as well do that, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the Don Lemon Terry Crews video, which it's been in my craw for as long as it's been out. It happened. I can't remember what date what was that? What day was that? That was July 6th. So it was a while ago. It was a couple weeks ago. And something about that video has been bugging me ever since. We've talked about it a little bit, but we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. But I got to play the intro first. So here we go. And I just realized that's the wrong intro. I forgot that I did a show on Saturday and I changed the intro, but that's okay. It is the Morning Night Live with your host, me, Marty, aka PDawg Night, as I'm known on the internet. And it's Monday, the 20th of July, 2020. I was out taking pictures of my gardens yesterday, and it dawned on me that when the coneflowers and the Asiatic lilies start blooming, we are on the downside, the downslide of summer. Oh my gosh. It's going away. So, but my pool is finally swimmable, and it took me a while because we opened it late, and for some reason I just couldn't get the thing right, but we finally got it right. So I actually got in the pool yesterday. Yeah, I was pretty excited about that. And, but that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about things that you come here to hear me talk about. Today, it's going to be Don Lemon, Black Lives Matter, Terry Crews, some tweets he made, some people that criticized him for. And it's been bugging me ever since that video came out 2 weeks ago, or that interview. So, before I get started, let's say good morning to everyone who is in the chat so far. Good morning to Cindy Rochelle, who is here first and gets the bell. Yay! Yay! Oh, there's a yay for you. Good morning. Also, good morning to Richo, my friend from Down Under, Advocatus Diaboli, the Devil's Advocate, Tyler F., Mike Savage, Blarg. Also, good morning to Cal Cannell, Superman's distant cousin. Good morning. I'm got repeats. Good morning. No Room for Squares. Midday Sun. DI Freighter Watcher. Let's see. I'm scrolling. Stabba Joe Scarborough, keeping his knife sharp. Scribe Light. Dog Thrapple. Good morning to who else is here? Katie did skate. Renee Mayette. People are strolling in slowly. Good morning, Grillin' Pirate Pete. Kessler. Black Hebrew Israelite. And that's everyone who's in the actual, who's chirped up so far. But people will be strolling in now and again. So, like I said, I want to go to this Don Lemon interview with Terry Crews. Now, I've long said, good morning, Jaeger Pony, and also. And Matt Fields. What's up, Matt? You haven't been around for a while. I'm glad to see you. Good to see you out here. And Judaphine, that's a new name. Hello, how are you? Okay, I'm gonna stop looking at the chat for a second and talk to you. So here's my whole take on the Black Lives Matter movement. In theory, the Black Lives Matter movement has to do with police killing unarmed black men, because that's what the mantra was when first the movement kind of started really with Trayvon Martin. It had nothing to do with police, but just at first when they thought that dickhead guy was his white, Zimmerman, I'm talking about. They thought he was white, and so then he didn't turn out to be white, but it was, in the beginning, it was a white guy kills black man, and then then they turned it to white Hispanic when they found out it was Hispanic, which is a term I had never heard before in my entire life. I had never heard the term someone being called a white Hispanic because, that was the thing. And then Michael Brown also being shot. Now, if you'd followed either of those cases, one of the reasons that George Zimmerman was acquitted was because there were witnesses who saw Trayvon Martin beating his ass. And also, I don't know if you know this about that case, but when they had a witness, his girlfriend supposedly, who was on the phone with them, the prosecuting, or not the prosecuting attorney, whoever it was for the Martin family, I think they were trying, I don't remember what it was, but they got the witness they got was not the girl he was talking to on the phone. And there's a lawsuit about that right now, which that's a whole nother thing. But anyway, if you went through that trial, yes, he was acquitted because there were enough witnesses to say that, yes, Trayvon Martin attacked him and it was self-defense. And the forensic evidence showed that he wasn't shot in the back. He wasn't, there were powder burns on him and his clothes. So it was obviously a close range shot. I mean, there's all kinds of forensic evidence and witness evidence that showed that, no matter what you think of Zimmerman, who he's kind of an asshole, but it was found to be self-defense. And then the Mike Brown case comes along, and the rumors and everything, he just he went out and executed this black man. When you look at the witness testimony, yes, he went after the officer's gun. The officer's gun was fired in the car. Then he went away, and then he charged the officer. Everyone who saw this, who actually witnessed it, I witnessed it, corroborated that Michael Brown was charging at it. But it started this Black Lives Matter movement because of the famous mantra. I forgot one important part. Mike Brown's friend did an interview. The kid who was with him when they kind of robbed the store and was walking with him in the street. And because that person who was with Mike Brown did one interview with, I don't know if it was a local news station or CNN or what, but one interview where he told the interviewer that Mike Brown had his hands up and said, "Don't shoot." Now, not a single other witness saw that, but that became the folklore of the Mike Brown case. So regardless, that became the impetus for Black Lives Matter. Now, the organization Black Lives Matter. Wait, excuse me, let's go back. The mantra of Black Lives Matter, to me, is, I get it. Yes, Black Lives matter, should matter, do matter. But for some reason, the organization Black Lives Matter doesn't really live up to its name. Okay? It basically seems only to be concerned with black lives. Now, it's a generic term, right? Only seems to be concerned with black lives when a black person is killed by a police officer, or sometimes a white guy or a white Hispanic. But it doesn't, and then all the other things the organization does really doesn't have much to do with black lives per se, but an ideology. Now, obviously, we know that the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, one of them who claimed that they are trained organizers and trained Marxist. And so a lot of the items on the Black Lives Matter list of, I don't know if you want to call them desires, wants, demands, whatever you want to call them, has nothing to do with police brutality, but with things like just dismantling the nuclear family, or just are not placing importance on the nuclear family, which from my perspective, as someone who's more on the conservative side of things, that's when a lot of our problems started getting worse. But there's all kinds of things on their list of 10 things. Only one of them has to do with, maybe one or two have to do with police brutality. Okay, and they're talking about dismantling the police system, dismantling the, defunding the police, dismantling the prison system and all that. They don't really have a good alternative. Anyway, so then we get to this thing that this interview that Don Lemon had with Terry Crews after Terry Crews tweeted something. So we're just going to go ahead and watch this video. This is all we're going to do today. We're going to go through this video and we're going to talk about Don Lemon. There we go. All right, so let me make sure I got the volume on. Okay, this should be fine. All right, here we go.
All right, everybody, please listen to this segment because actor and activist Terry Crews facing backlash for tweeting, "We must ensure Black Lives Matter doesn't morph into Black Lives Better."
All right, now I'm going to stop right there. We're going to be stopping quite a bit during this video. So this is the tweet Terry Crews got in hot water for. "If you're a child of God, you are my brother and my sister. I have family of every race, creed, and ideology. We must ensure Black Lives Matter doesn't morph into Black Lives Better." Now, when I saw this tweet, I understood what he was trying to say, although I don't think he chose the correct words. Okay? What I think he was trying to say is that he doesn't want Black Lives Matter to become like a supremacy movement, a movement where a lot of the civil rights movement has just been talking about reaching levels of equality and equal opportunity, which I think, if you're honest and you're a big supporter of Black Lives Matter, you got to look back and go, well, it has somewhat accomplished that. If you really look at what's happening in the world, these, the idea that these rare instances of police shootings, and I say they're rare because relative to all other deaths of Black people, they're rare. They're very rare. And in fact, it's in relation to police interactions. They're rare. They're extremely rare, but they're very sensational. And the sensationalization amplified by the media on every one of these incidents doesn't help. And also social media now, because there's this idea that Black men are being hunted in the streets. And it's false. It's false. It's absolutely false. It's rare. If it weren't rare, the people protesting wouldn't be able to remember every single name. Because I guarantee you, the people protesting can't tell you all the names of Black people who were murdered last year, because there's over 7,000. But not by police. And I bet if you ask some of these protesters, if you ask these protesters, okay, Black Lives Matter, that's important, that's good, that's a good thing. What's the leading cause of death of Black men ages 15 to 34? If Black Lives Matter, you should know the answer to that. Oh, and most of them I bet would guess police shootings. Not even close. Not even in the ballpark. It's murder. 50% of all black men ages 15, all who die. Now, okay, wait a minute. Not 50% of black men, because that would be millions of people. First of all, black men ages 15 to 34, or anybody ages 15 to 34 dying is kind of rare. You know, it's that, because that's not an age that normally you let people die, right? But for black men, the leading cause of death from those ages is murder, homicide, whatever you want to call it. And not only that, 50% of all the deaths of black men ages 15 to 34 is a homicide. Again, it was 7,400 something 2 years ago. The latest stats, I think, is 2018 is the last one they have that's out from the Center for Disease Control. 50% of the deaths of black men ages 15 to 34, homicide. Now, now people are like, oh, well, are you talking about that black on black crime? Yeah, you always talk about black on black crime. Why don't you talk about white on white crime? Well, because if you looked at that same Center for Disease Control chart, it's like 8% of the deaths of white people ages 15 to 54 are murder. I mean, it's not even the top 5. It's number 1 for black men. And so if Black Lives Matter, how are we going to fix that? Because 7,500, look, that same year, okay, so 7,408 black women were murdered, and it was like 290 were killed by police officers. 290, 7,400, and of the 290, because there was 990 people killed by police officers that year, 270, was it 274 or something like that? I'll get the stats exactly when because I'll probably make this enhanced video too. Out of 990 people killed by police officers, 270, I think, were black men. But nearly all of them were not even questionably justified, usually in a shootout or either a car crashes. Because when they say killed by police officers, they include not just being shot, but every other reason. And 9 of the 290 were unarmed. In fact, that same year, 19 white men were killed. Unarmed white men were killed. Now, unarmed doesn't mean they weren't dangerous, weren't threatening, weren't creating a threat to the officer or to someone else. It just means they didn't have a weapon in their hand. All right, let's move on. Let's listen to this.
Here's how he explained it. Are all white people bad? No. Are all black people good? No. Knowing this reality, I stand on my decision to unite with good people, no matter the race, creed, or ideology. Given the number of threats against this decision, I also decide to die on this hill. Terry Crews joins me now. Terry?
So yeah, well, here let's keep it going here.
Man, you stepped in it.
You stepped in it how, Don? Yeah, because you know what? Here's the thing. The people who are involved with Black Lives Matter, the organization, or a lot of people out there protesting are mad at Terry Crews for this tweet. Wow. Now, I thought it was perfectly reasonable, but that's just me. That's just how I am. You know, there's nothing wrong with what he said. Anyway.
You say that you're willing You say you're willing to die on this hill. You've taken a lot of heat for this. Explain what you were thinking and why it's so important that you die on this hill.
Well, again, I wanted to bring up the fact that, there are some very, very, militant type forces in Black Lives Matter. And
Black Lives Matter, the organization. If you look at the leadership of the Black Lives Matter organization, and what they say their their goals are. Yeah. They're looking at some, basically, like I said, they're Marxists. And it's funny, as I watch the protests around the country, they are using this Black Lives Matter thing to try to push a lot of different agendas. You know what I'm saying? Apparently there's some kind of supposedly general strike today. If I get time, we'll get into that. But let's take Portland, for example. Now, ever since St. George was killed, I shouldn't call him St. George because that's I don't know if that's cool or not, but he's become a saint. Ever since George Floyd was killed, they've been rioting in Portland, and ever since, that's several weeks. We're looking at 6-8 weeks now, and I wonder if they really know why they're rioting. But as you watch those riots, a lot of their interest is more about just breaking shit and creating chaos and anarchy and fuck those who are doing better than us. I have to laugh though, because I was listening to somebody this morning. They were talking about it, and you look at those protest riots in Portland, and it's if to find a black person in those among those protesters, it's like playing fucking Where's Waldo. There's hardly a black person out there. They're not rioting for Black Lives Matter, but they're sure riding the backs of black people who, supposedly that this is about Black Lives Matter. It's not. It's not. So that's what he says. Some are militant. Yeah, they are. And right now, it's no longer about George Floyd. It's no longer about Black Lives Matter, although they like to say the words. I don't think they really give a shit. There's a lot of Black lives lost related to these protests and some of the actions that have been taken since by some of these mayors who've kowtowed to the protests. Let's keep going.
Issuing was a warning. It's one of those things where I've been a part of different groups, I've been a part of different things, and you see how extremes can go far and can go wild. And then when you issue a warning, and when a warning is seen as detrimental to the movement, how can you ever have checks and balances? In the 60s and 70s, airplanes went down all the time. And the reason they found out why they did was because the pilots could never be questioned. And when you have the leaders of the Black Lives Movement who are now talking about, if we don't get our demands, we're going to burn it down. Other black people who are talking about working with other whites and other races, they're being viewed as sellouts or called Uncle Toms. You start to understand that you are now, being controlled. You're not being treated as loved. You're actually being controlled. Someone wants to control the narrative. And I viewed it as a very, very dangerous self-righteousness that was developing that really viewed themselves as better. It was almost a supremacist move.
Let me jump in.
Yeah, now, amazingly, Don didn't jump in until now. But as soon as Don opens his mouth, that's when I get to the point where I go, what you talking about, Willis?
They view that their Black lives mattered a lot more than mine.
Okay, so let me,
because he was getting death threats. He's getting threats for just saying something that he said. And so that's what Terry Crews is talking about.
There's a lot that you said. You think Black Lives Matter is, you said you think it's an extreme movement? Because it's now part of the.
No, this is the thing. It's a great mantra. It's a true mantra.
Ding! It is a great mantra. The words Black Lives Matter should be like, yeah, that makes sense. Now, please, refresh, please, PDawg. Lag problem. Hang on a second here. Let's check here. Let's see. Oh, I'm using some frame. Okay, I got some frame issues. Hang on a second here. Let's see. How do I refresh this? Hang on. Let's try this. 69% over the last 2 minutes. You know what? I'm not even sure how to fix that. Let's see. Poor, student, healthy. Well, we're gonna have to get through it. We'll have to get through it. I'll make a separate video of this too, and I'll do that. But anyway, all right. Part of it, yeah, I'm having internet issues I've been having for a while. All right, but Don's saying, okay, let's see.
Mantra. Black lives do matter. But when you're talking about an organization, you're talking about the leaders. You're talking about
yes,
the
he's
people
talking about the
who are
organization.
Okay,
responsible for
I got
putting
you.
these
I got
things
you. I got
together.
you.
And now, here's why Don cut him off. Because Don doesn't want him talking about the organization's 10 points that they want to happen. Because if you get into that, then you're going to see that it has very little to do about police brutality. But he cuts in and says...
So let me,
It's
but
two different things.
Cherry, you realize that even during the civil rights movement that Dr. King was seen as extreme. That movement was seen as extreme. To people who don't want to make change, movements are seen as extreme. You can paint them easily as an extreme when they are not.
This is very true, but also,
But yeah, well, never mind. I'm not going to.
when you're talking about MLK, you talk about Nelson Mandela, and even Malcolm X. They all realized that you had to have a non-racial component to these kind of movements, or there will be resentment. There will be get back. There will be one of these people will tend to listen. I don't want to move from one oppressor to the next. And one thing is really
Who's the next oppressor? Who's the next oppressor?
Oh, when I describe this, when you look in the city of Chicago, there are 9 children who died.
Now, here's where we're going to get into the part that just it annoys me. And the next oppressor is crime in certain areas. Now, I realize I don't live in areas where there's high crime. So it's hard for me, and plus my black card's credit limit has been reduced many times just because of my certain ideologies and things that I do in my life. But yeah, the new oppressor is going to be, if you get, well, imagine if we end up in a socialist Marxist system. Who does the new oppressor become? It's Animal Farm, right? You're saying that you're being oppressed, but oppressed by who? There is no oppressor right now. That's the part where I think Terry got off the rail a little bit here. There's not an oppressor. You know who the oppressor is in some of these communities? Behavior is the oppressor. Attitude is the oppressor. Kids are told from they're young that, well, white is going to hold you down. No, they're not. No, they're not. It doesn't pay to. It doesn't matter if you do in school. You ain't going to be shit anyway. Who's the oppressor? Usually the people around you are your oppressor, because no one's stopping anybody from advancing in this world. People who do right. Now, have there been awful mistakes by law enforcement, or and some that should even be prosecuted? Absolutely. But the idea that there's something oppressing anybody right now, except for their own mind or in their own mind is pretty amazing. It's unfathomable.
Gun violence, by black on black gun violence, from June 20th all the way to today.
Now, I'll tell you in a second why this whole conversation here irritates me.
And you're talking about even with the Atlanta child murders, there were 28 kids who died in 2 years. You're talking about a month, and you have 9 black kids, and the Black Lives Matter movement has said nothing.
Ding, yes, because the Black Lives Matter movement isn't all encompassing. It has a very narrow focus. Now listen to what Don says here, though.
About this
what does that have
thing.
to do with equality, though, Terry?
What does that have to do with equality? Whoa, Don. The Black Lives Matter movement isn't about equality, is it? Didn't you just say, or have you said it yet, that the Black Lives Matter movement is about police brutality? Let's see here. The Black Lives Matter movement isn't about equality. It's supposed to be about police brutality. But it calls itself Black Lives Matter. If Black Lives Matter, why don't those 9 kids' lives matter? They matter to people who live in that area, but do you see protests or anyone stepping up saying, hey, what about these black lives?
I don't understand what that has to do with equality, because listen, there's crime. There are people in those communities those people aren't just being nonchalant about gun violence. I lived in Chicago.
And you know what else irritates me about this? Listen, both of them said it too. Gun violence. Gun violence? What do you mean gun violence? No. It's people violence. The guns are not violent by themselves. Okay? The gun doesn't just run up and shoot somebody. The person with the gun comes and shoots somebody, and it hasn't always been guns that are killing people. People get beat to death, stomped at the curb, knifed, hit with bats. It's not just gun violence, although guns are the tool that's used most often. It's people violence. Crime, murder is a person killing another person. Guns are inanimate objects.
Many people who are working in those communities to try to get rid of the gun violence. It's
not about the guns. Guess what? If it were the guns, the record 6 million guns sold the last month, you would have a lot of people dead, wouldn't you? It's not the guns. It's people violence, not gun violence. Stop saying gun violence. I get tired of hearing that.
In this country is prevalent, but I don't understand what that has to do with a movement that's for equality for black people. It's
not a movement for equality for black people. If you listen to their manifesto, you know, it's funny, this strike today, I can't remember where it came from, but there's supposedly a general strike today. Today's the 20th. They're talking about, this is about unions and $15, minimum wage and this and that, and, all this shit that has, and the Black Lives part is just kind of a side note. All these organizations jumping on this intersectionality. But I thought Black Lives Matter was about police brutality. Anyway, let's go.
It's not mutually exclusive that if you care about equality for black people, that somehow you're going to stop random violence or, unfortunately, kids from being shot. It just seems like apples and oranges.
No, it's Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Are those people black who got shot, who got killed? Are these all the... I mean, since George Floyd's death, Hell, even in Chaz, whatever the hell you want to call that nonsense that happened in Seattle. They killed black people. Did those Black Lives Matter? Well, apparently not, because they tried to hide everything that had to do with it, right? Black Lives Matter is what it's called, isn't it? But I don't think Don believes that.
It's not that way. This is the thing, Don. Black people need to hold other black people accountable. I said this the same thing. This is the Black America's version of the Me Too movement. If anything is going to change, we ourselves need to look at our own communities and look at each other and say, this thing cannot go down. And this is the thing, too. There are a lot of great, great people there who are held hostage by people who literally are running these neighborhoods with violence and then claiming that Black Lives Matter. When you look at the parents of these little kids who are saying, hey, man, why aren't they speaking up for me, too? And this is what I'm saying. When I look at this whole thing about, it's about who is controlling the narrative. It's got to be all Black Lives Matter. And
ding, that's the thing. It's got to be. I know people get annoyed. I know, especially people, when I talk to black people about this, and people get annoyed because everyone always wants to bring up Chicago and bring up Detroit and shit like that, because some people don't really care. It's just a way to get off the subject. But the problem is, if we're talking about black lives, well, what kills the most black people, especially in those ages where you're seeing these people get killed by police? Well, it's not the police. 0.1% of black men die from the police, and of those 0.1%, a tiny fraction of them could be even close to being called unjustified. But 50% of the black men who die at those ages, which is, like I said, it's unusual for someone to die between ages 15 and 34. But for black men, when they do, 50% of them, it's from homicide. And so when you say, well, again, someone says, well, you're talking about black on black crime. Well, yeah, 94% of those black men who are murdered between those ages are killed by another black man. Well, what about white on white crime? Well, guess what? Not even close. About 7% of people at that age who are white are killed via homicide. But 50%! Black Lives Matter. Imagine 7,400 black people died. Homicide. In, what was it, 2018? I can't remember if it was 2018 or 2019. I haven't looked at the stat. I didn't pull it up for this. 7,400 out of 15,000. Out of 15,126, something like that, homicides in the United States in that year, 7,400 were black people. I'm talking about homicide victims, not who committed it. Homicide victims. We are half of all homicide victims. Black Lives Matter. And that's 1 year. That's below average for the last 10 years. It's like 75,000 people in the last 10 years. Do you know why you don't know all their names now? But you certainly remember Trayvon Martin, or Mike Brown or Sandra Bland, who committed suicide in her cell. Some people think it's sketchy, whatever. You know about Tamir Rice. You can name all these dog bite man events, but 75,000 at least black people have been murdered in the last 10 years. That's a lot of people don't understand when people say, oh, they always start to bring up Chicago, or all the murders in Chicago or the murders in New York. That's why they bring them up, because you're talking about Black Lives Matter, but you never talk about any of those. Now, Don's going to say something here that makes me clear what Black Lives Matter is about. And let's see if you catch it. Let's see if you catch it.
And what's happened is that because I even challenged it, because I even questioned and warned people,
Terry,
I became sick. Like if I told you to wear a mask,
Terry,
they want to kick you out.
You're a high-profile person. You're writing things out there. You know you're going to get backlash. You know people are going to respond to what you're saying.
Don's going to say something stupid here.
So I don't think you should be surprised by that. I have a skin as tough as an armadillo because of.
Yeah, you're a thin-skinned little bitch, Don, but that's okay. I'm not going to. That's why you don't let anybody talk. That's why you don't let anybody challenge you on your show. You cut them off and change the direction so it fits what you think instead of just interviewing people and letting them talk. But I'm sorry. Let's hear what Don has to say.
Of what I do, and I think maybe you should adapt that. But here's what
oh, you should be. You should be more like me, Terry. You should be less thin-skinned. Terry's not being thin-skinned here. He's just telling you what he thinks, Don.
Hey, the Black Lives Matter movement was started because it was talking about police brutality.
Uh-huh.
If you want an all Black Lives Matter movement that talks about gun violence in communities, including, black communities, then start that movement with that name. But that's
wait a minute. What's the name of this movement we're speaking of, Don? What's the name of the movement? The name of the movement is Black Lives Matter. You seem to think that the movement is called Some Black Lives Matter. That's weird. It's called Black Lives Matter. Well, do you have to say all Black Lives Matter when you say Black Lives Matter? Because you all get pissed off when someone says, Black Lives Matter. Someone says all lives matter. Well, we're talking about Black lives, and all lives ain't gonna matter until Black Lives Matter. Okay. There's a whole bunch of people getting murdered in the hood. Black Lives Matter. Oh no, we can't talk about the black on black crime. We can't talk about that crime. What? But it's Black Lives Matter. Well, no, but just these Black lives. Some Black Lives Matter. Is that what you're saying, Don? That's what you're saying, Don. I don't think you intended to say that, but you just did. You just said some Black Lives Matter. If you want to have an organization that encompasses all Black lives, then you should start your own movement. Well, I thought Black Lives Matter was pretty all-inclusive. It should be.
Not what Black Lives Matter is about. It's not an all-encompassing.
It's not?
So if you're talking about...
Why isn't it, Don? Why isn't it all-encompassing? Because it's not about Black lives, okay? It's about creating fear, creating resentment, creating hate. And I understand some of these police officers should be prosecuted. The ones like the guy who killed George Floyd, although now there's some really weird things about that case that we're finding out slowly but surely. But I have fear that our state attorney Keith Ellison's gonna fuck it up and cause even more problems. But anyway, let's go.
If someone started a movement that said cancer matters, and then someone comes in and said, "Why aren't you talking about HIV?" It's not the same thing.
Oh. Well, let's have that discussion, Don. It's like if someone started a movement called Cancer Matters. Cancer matters. But we only decided that we're going to only talk about mesothelioma. Okay? Cancer that is a cancer that is from having contact or inhaling asbestos. Cancer matters, but we're only going to talk about mesothelioma, a very rare form of cancer. And someone said, well, cancer matters. Well, there's, the biggest ones are lung cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer. No, we're only talking about mesothelioma because that's what this movement's about. It's called Cancer Matters, but we're only going to talk about mesothelioma. Do you understand why some people might be confused by your movement, Don? That was a bad analogy, Don. I think mine makes more sense. Cancer matters. Oh, but we're only... Well, yes. Somebody tells out. Cancer matters. Yes. My father died from lung cancer, and my sister died from breast cancer, and my son has prostate cancer. We're not talking about those cancers. We're talking about mesothelioma. All cancers will matter when mesothelioma matters. Right, Don?
Talking about cancer. So the Black Lives Matter movement is about police brutality.
It's only about police brutality. I thought you said it was about equality. Didn't you say it was about equality, Don? No, but it's only about police brutality? Really? Well, then I guess we can't worry about all those black people who lost their businesses in Minneapolis. Their black lives don't matter. We can't talk about the children who've been getting murdered. We can't talk about the 2 guys who were murdered and killed at Chop Chaz. Can't talk about the guy who was walking down the street with his daughter and got shot in the head. That black life doesn't matter. We're only talking about mesothelioma, Don. Sorry. That's what this Cancer Matters movement is.
And injustice in that manner, not about what's happening in black neighborhoods. If you
Well, yeah, because what happens in black neighborhoods just doesn't matter, does it, Don?
There are people who are working on that issue, and if you want to start that issue, why don't you start it? Do you understand what I'm saying?
But when you
Well, cancer matters. Oh, but we're only talking about mesothelioma.
But when you look at the organization,
Some
police
Black
brutality
Lives
is
Matter.
not the only thing they're talking about.
I know that, but I agree, but that's...
Oh, now cut them off on that because they're talking about a whole lot of other bullshit that has nothing to do with black police brutality.
Matter movement is about, Terry. Black Lives Matter is about police brutality and about criminal justice. It's not about what happens in communities when it comes to crime, black on black crime. People who live near each other, black people, kill each other. Same as whites. 80-some% of white people are killed by white people.
Yes, Don. But 50% of all homicide victims in the United States are black people. 50% of all homicide victims in the United States are black people, Don. More than all the other races combined. Thank you, Matt Fields, for our first super chat of the day. And you're the top super chat of the day. Congratulations. Matt Fields with the $3 said, did a black hole swallow the airplane? Don Lemon. The only black hole that's swallowing long, hard, tubular things around here is Don Lemons. Hind parts. I'm not gonna. Yeah, yes. Thank you, Matt Fields. He said poop shoot, but I did want to say that, but yeah, Don Lemon did the airplane could have been lost in a black hole. Oh, good God. Thank you, Matt Fields, for the first super chat of the day and the top super chat of the day. By the way, the Morning Night Live is brought to you by you, the viewers of the Morning Night Live. Share the stream, share the, you can do it on Twitter, Minds and Gabs up there, Parlor, or you can hit this share arrow. Also, if you like what we do, hit the like button. This is a shortened version today because of my late Monday show, but there you go. And super chats and donations can be done through the Streamlabs link, which is in the chat and in the description down below. You can click that button. All right, let's finish this up.
True.
Because of proximity.
Very true.
It's the same.
Oh, yeah, proximity. But, yes, and again, the leading cause of death of black people, black men especially, ages 15 to 34, number one cause of death is homicide. So it's a much bigger problem in the black community than any other race by far. By far. So, proximity. What about white and white crime? Well, white and white crime causing half the deaths in those age groups. White and white crime, white on white crime doesn't have a murder rate anywhere near the rate we are killing each other. So I know people get tired of hearing about what about black and black crime, because it is a kind of a distraction. But when you think about it, it is a tragedy. Reminds me of that. I'll have to bring that song up. Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. And I'll tell you what, you start getting police in some of these high crime areas, where the reason that police are in these high crime areas is because they get called there more often. Okay? It's not being over policed. People in high crime areas tend to call the police because there's lots of crime they're calling the police for. And that's how resources are allocated. Let's finish this up.
Thing with black people.
But
That happens in every single neighborhood.
Yeah, it doesn't happen in every single neighborhood. In my suburb, where I live, which is mostly white people. Now, granted, I'm not saying that it's, well, anyway. There's been one murder in the last year. And that's rare. Even one is rare in my suburb. Extremely rare. Now, granted, there are economic factors. There are cultural factors. There are all kinds of factors that is why it is. It's not because my suburb is mostly white, or that because that area, there's a certain town that's mostly black. There's higher crime in lower income areas. Okay, and that doesn't matter if you're white or black, right? Although the rates of crime are the same in the Appalachian Hills as they are in the inner cities. Similar poverty. There's other types of crime, but whatever. But the idea that what about white and white crime? Well, white and white crime doesn't produce nearly as many murders. Because remember, if 50% of all homicide victims are black, the other 50% of those homicide victims are split up evenly between probably whites and Hispanics. And there's a few Asians, whatever, in there. So it's not even like the other 50% are all white. The other are mixed up ethnicities. But 50% of homicide victims are black. Black lives matter. But they got to matter to us. See, they say, well, when someone says Black Lives Matter and someone else says all lives matter, he says, well, all lives aren't going to matter until Black Lives Matter. Well, I got a feeling some people have the attitude, well, black lives aren't going to matter until all black lives matter. Because you really love the dog bites man events, or the rare occurrences where a white person kills a black person relative to the other way around. But man, doesn't look like black lives matter that much. Now it's not true. Obviously, the people in communities where a lot of crime happens and where people are murdered, those small communities obviously are concerned and have groups and have people trying to fix that problem. But they aren't getting the national attention. That David Dorn, the officer in St. Louis who got killed, notice how that story wasn't really much national news, was it? Or any of these kids. Have you seen any of these kids who've been dying over the last 8 weeks on CNN? Have you heard big stories and big pushes about them? Or the kid who died, the first guy who died in the only place to put him on was Fox News. Huh. Well, wow, Fox News seems to care about Black lives. Or are they going to say, well, no, Fox News just put it to stick it in the eye of the Black Lives Matter movement? Well, does his Black Life matter? Did it?
That doesn't. Again, I'm not saying that's not important that those kids died.
I'm not saying it's not important. Oh, just those kids. It's not important. I'm not saying it's not important that those kids died. Are they Black lives, Don? Are they Black lives? Or, oh, I'm sorry, they weren't mesothelioma.
Listen, I understand what you're saying. I totally understand. It is about police brutality. That should never be accepted. Yeah. I am not saying that that's not it, but there's more there. Okay. And when I look at, if they have more on their agenda, we need to ask them.
There's a lot on their agenda that nobody wants. Don doesn't want to talk about the other stuff on their agenda.
I got you. Warning, watching. And
Don doesn't want to talk about the other things on their agenda because Don is gaslighting you. Don doesn't want you to know that. Because Don's job as a news anchor on CNN, apparently their job at CNN is to create fear and get you riled up, because everything that they do on CNN is designed with kind of an end goal in mind, is to find ways to tie everything bad to the orange man. So they don't have time for people, actually caring about Black lives. And I'm not sure what Don's purpose was bringing Terry on is. I'm surprised that he did. Anyway, let's finish up.
And if that bothers you, now that bothers me. Because if I can't warn you, we are equal. If we're equal, I should.
Oh, I'm over time. I can't talk anymore.
I gotta go. We'll see you, Terry. Thank you for coming.
Why are you laughing, Don? All right, so that's it.
All right, everybody, please listen to this segment because actor and activist Terry Crews facing backlash for tweeting.
You know what's funny?
Black Lives Matter.
I always wonder when they interview some of these actors, though. Why do they always introduce them as actor and activist Terry Crews? Terry Crews is not an activist. He's just a guy. He's a guy who said something on Twitter, and because he has a high profile, you decide to give him hell, right? Everyone decided to give him hell, but he's just a guy. So anyway, you guys, that's it. That's it for today. I know we started late and I have to end early. I apologize for not being here. But thank you guys for showing up. I've been wanting to go through this video for a while. I still want to make a standalone video on it because I certainly have other points I'd like to say. I'd like to make them more coherent. I kind of just rambled on a little bit. But, that happens when you watch Don Lemon. Anyway, thank you so much for being here today on the Morning Night Live. I'll be back at my normal time tomorrow, 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central, 1500 GMT for those people in other parts of the world, like my friend Richo and down and under. And, before you go, if you haven't done so, please take your cup and have a sip, and then make a fist and punch the crap out of that like button before you go. And if you like what we do, also please share the stream. Also, if you're watching on the replay, leave a comment in the comment section so that I know you're here. And finally, thank you, Matt Fields, for the donation today, the $3 super chat. If you want to be a part of the permanent part of the, if you want to be a permanent part of the show, you can always throw a couple bucks in the tip jar and have your super chat read live on the show. It will be a permanent part of the show that you're watching. So thanks everybody for being here today, but I do have to go. I might do something this afternoon. Keep your notification ears open. My name is PDawg Knight, and I'm out of here. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Hey, this is PDawg Knight, and thank you for watching today on the PDawg Knight channel. If you have an observation or remark you'd like to make about this video or my channel, I absolutely welcome you to write it in the comments section down below. I really look forward to hearing from you. And before you go, if you like what you saw but you're not already subscribed, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and definitely click that bell that pops up afterward so you'll be notified when I post new videos or when we go live. I broadcast my live show, The Morning Night Live, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. A special thank you to all supporters of this channel who share our videos on social media and who make donations through the Streamlabs link, which is also in the description down below. Thanks again, and until next time, I'm PDawg Knight, and I'm out of here.